Hi everyone, thank you for watching. How are we going to position ourselves in a public speech and make sure that we are not polarizing the audience when we present our spiritual views? Now, the world has changed since the time I first did my first speech, and it is a much more tolerant community on the planet now when it comes to different points of view. We do have a lot of education and training over the years that tells us how to be considering other people's positions, how to maybe become more willing to share our spiritual values and our spiritual point of view. But still, we need to keep a level of neutrality, or at least a kind of objectivity about where we stand religiously, spiritually, when we are public speakers. But I'm also wanting to help you address, how do you actually bring through some of your authentic spirituality even so? And so I'm going to share with you three things that I think you can do. And these are things that I myself have practiced. I've seen people doing them. And I think they are very powerful ways of sending a deeper message to an audience about what you really stand for and who you really are when it comes to your work and your positioning in the world and the way that you care about society and the things that are on a higher level beyond you and your own personal desires and your own ego, let's say. So it's really quite an important thing, is how do you begin to share your spirituality in ways that are not going to polarize the audience and actually are going to take them to this higher level of understanding and respect for you and what you're about. Three things. First of all is the one that most people talk about, which is values. How to share your values is a really great way. And then I'm going to be sharing with you another tip on how to share your personal practice and how that can send very specific messages to an audience. And then the third one, which I absolutely love, is how to think very critically about being more metaphysical in the way that you're speaking and what you're speaking about. Let me begin with the first one, is your values. Now, we all stand for something. There are things that are important to you. I'm sure that you have already highlighted in many speeches already. But here's what I want you to think about doing. When you are speaking to an audience, try to demonstrate the values you have by a way that you've worked with a client, maybe a case study that reflects something somebody said to you that triggered off a certain kind of insight about how you would like to treat people maybe differently. Show a little bit of your vulnerability in how you also present your values, because this makes it more believable, but also more humane and more easy to relate to you. The second tip is to look very seriously at the content and the presentation of your speech, what you're trying to achieve, and what specific things you do in your personal life related to your own spirituality that connect in with that, and share just that. I'm not suggesting you go and tell people what your whole morning practice is and why you do it, and that you kind of boast about how spiritually woke you are, and or even try and engage them in that if that's not part of your speech. What I am saying is, look at what you physically do on a day-to-day basis, or maybe once a year, or maybe you're in a retreat and you realize something. Share something from that and build the context so people know it was a spiritually important moment for you, and you're not trying to kind of commission anybody to follow that particular style of doing things, but you're wanting to get your aha moment, your moment of wisdom. You want to share that, but pack it with the context around so that they are also aware of your practice, that you have a special spiritual practice that you use that helps you to get certain kinds of awareness and conscious ways of doing what it is that you do. The third very important thing is to think about the metaphysical reality of life. Now, we are in many different circles in the world that are beginning to acknowledge the deeper spiritual wisdom of sages, seers, and spiritual teachers from aeons back. We have new and interesting neutral ways to talk about the philosophies, the teachings, the ministries, the consciousness-driven procedures of living. And we can refer to these things. But what's even more powerful is to look at the universal truth of them. What is the universal truth? That there is something beyond what we think. There is something beyond our ego. There is something beyond that sometimes people call the layers of the unseen. Sometimes people talk about it as what is metaphysical. Sometimes people use metaphor to talk about nature and how nature teaches us certain things about human behavior. Find which way is working for you, that's worked for you naturally, authentically, and start to embed your speeches with some of that. Test it and see how effective it is. Then try to work on testimonials from clients to see what part of that way of sharing is working, and then develop a signature style. How can you bring in some of that deeper truth, that very special, what I call spiritual mojo, that gets you up in the morning, that drives your day, not just the motivation, but the deeper connection to something divine. When you can transmit that in an authentic, powerful way, people feel touched by grace when you speak. And that is the mark of a true paradigm shifter. So if you'd like more tips on any of this, watch the other videos, comment below, and then come to some of the webinars. I have them running every now and again. You can find out on the Women of Truth Yin group, where I do free webinar trainings on how to move from being a public speaker to a paradigm shifter. And there's actually a course on this, which I teach in 5 weeks. Very powerful, goes into intercultural dialogue. How can you actually reach people that maybe you're unaware of? How can you use neuroplasticity teachings to understand deeper what you're doing in order to be more powerful and more outstanding as a speaker? And also, what is your USP or unique pivotal difference that's going to make you the one on the podium people want to listen to every time you're there? Thanks for watching, everybody. I look forward to seeing you in some more videos. Bye-bye.